Shift, wolfless girl, or crawl off my sand for good." Garrick's voice cracked across the trial ring of Moonhollow, and the whole gathered pack laughed with him. From the high seat carved for the Alpha King, I watched them push her forward into the moonlit circle, and I felt the old anger stir low in my chest. Her name was Ussold. For 19 winters they had called her empty, cursed, a hollow thing born without a wolf, and tonight they had dragged her to the sand to prove it before every soul in the hollow. She did not weep. That was the first thing that struck me. They shoved her, and she caught herself, and she rose, and her chin lifted, and she looked not at the jeering ranks but up, at the great white moon that hung swollen over the ridge. I leaned forward against the stone arm of my seat, without meaning to. "Attempt the shift," the trial keeper intoned, because law demanded the words. "Show the pack your wolf, or be named wolfless before the moon and cast out." "She has no wolf," Garrick called, and threw his arms wide to his laughing friends. "Save your breath, keeper, we might as well ask the sand to sing." I should have silenced him. A wiser king would have. But something held my tongue, some pull under my ribs that I could not yet name, and I only watched her walk to the center of the ring alone. Ussold knelt in the cold silver light. She pressed her bare palms flat to the sand and bowed her head, and her shoulders trembled once, and the ranks howled their scorn. "Nothing," someone shouted. "Empty as we always said." A boy near the front made a whimpering dog sound, and 100 voices took it up, mocking, cruel, and the noise of it rolled over that small kneeling figure like a tide meant to drown her. I opened my mouth to end it, and the ground moved. Not a tremor of the feet, a deep rolling shudder that came up through the stone of my very seat, through the bones of the mountain, as though the hollow itself had drawn a breath and held it. The laughter died in 100 throats at once. Every jeer, every whimper, every mocking word simply stopped, cut clean, and in that sudden and enormous silence I heard only the wind and the fast, small sound of Ussold's breathing. Then light broke from her hands. It was not the ordinary heat shimmer of a shifting wolf. It was cold, a pale, frost-blue radiance that poured up out of the sand where her palms pressed, climbing her arms, wreathing her bowed shoulders in threads of silver fire. Frost bloomed across the ring in feathered stars. The very breath of the gathered pack turned to white mist, and the mist did not fall but rose, drawn upward toward her as if she were the moon come down to stand among us. I was on my feet. I do not remember rising. She lifted her head, and her eyes had gone the color of winter starlight, and the frost fire closed over her like a wave. It did not tear at her the way a shift tears at the young, all struggle and pain. It gathered her the way the tide gathers the shore, gentle and vast and certain, as though her wolf had waited 19 winters beneath her skin only for the courage to be scorned into the open, and where the mocked girl had knelt, a wolf rose up out of the light. I had ruled the wolves of Moonhollow for 11 years. I had stood in my own true form over conquered fields and thought no creature under the moon could stand taller than the black king wolf of the old line. I was wrong. The wolf that rose from Ussold's kneeling place was greater than mine, half a head taller at the shoulder, her pelt a living silver frost that threw back the moonlight in a cold white blaze. Her every hair rhymed as though she had walked out of the heart of winter itself. Spirit light streamed from her like breath from a mountain. She was the most beautiful and the most terrible thing I had ever seen, and I felt my knees want to bend. Around the ring, they were already bending. Garrick went down first, Garrick, who had called her empty, who had told the keeper to save his breath. His legs simply folded, and he pressed his brow to the sand and could not lift it. Beside him, his laughing friends dropped one after another, and behind them the ranks went down in a great silent wave. Warriors and elders and mothers and the mocking boys, every knee to the ground, every proud head bowed low before the frost-silver wolf who stood blazing in the center of Moonhollow. The old ones were weeping. I heard one of them breathe the word the young had forgotten, moonblood. Lunar of the old moonblood, born once in 10 generations, brighter than any king, a wolf of frost and silver that the founding songs had promised would come again when the pack had need of her, and would rise always from the one they had wronged. The great silver wolf turned her starlit eyes to me, and I understood then the pull that had held my tongue, the reason my own wolf had strained toward this small, scorned girl since they first dragged her onto my sand. My blood knew hers. She was the other half of the throne I had sat alone upon for 11 cold years, and every fiber of me had been waiting, without knowing it, for her to rise. I came down from the high seat. I crossed the ring alone, past the rows of bowed and trembling backs, and I did not shift to meet her as king meets king. I stayed in the form of a man because a man was what I wished to offer her, not a rival, not a conqueror, only myself. I stopped before the frost-silver wolf and looked up into those winter eyes, and I went to one knee in the cold light of her, the alpha king of Moonhollow kneeling on his own trial sand. "They named you empty," I said, and my voice was rough. "They were fools, and I was a fool to let them speak it in my hearing. You are no wolfless girl, Ussold. You are the Luna this pack has waited 10 generations to see. You are the one my wolf has been reaching for since the night they shamed you onto this ground." The silver wolf lowered her great head until her frost-cold brow rested against mine. The touch of her went through me like the first thaw after 100 winters. The light softened around us both, and the feathered frost across the sand began, very gently, to melt. She stepped back. The radiance folded inward, drawing down and down, and the woman stood again where the wolf had blazed, Ussold, barefoot on the sand, wrapped in a mantle of pale mist that the moon had lent her. Her winter eyes were her own once more, wide and wet and disbelieving, searching my face as though she feared even now to trust the kneeling king before her. "You would truly claim me?" she whispered. "After everything they said, after all of this." Her hands were shaking. "You have a right to be certain, so I will ask and you will answer freely before them all. Do you wish it? Not because a bond commands you, because you choose it." That she should ask me, she, who had been given no choice in anything her whole life long, undid something in me that 11 years of rule had made hard. "I wish it," I said, "freely and before every soul in this hollow and every moon that ever rises after, but the choosing is yours, Ussold, not mine. I will not take a step you do not offer. Come to me only if you wish to come." For a long moment she only looked at me. The whole pack knelt frozen, not daring to breathe, waiting on the will of the girl they had mocked an hour before. Then Ussold crossed the last of the sand between us, and she put her cold, small hand into mine, and she chose. I rose, and I lifted our joined hands so the gathered pack could see, and I named her Luna of Moonhollow in the old words that had waited 10 generations to be spoken. The hollow did not roar its approval. It could not. It only stayed bowed, hushed, and reverent, the way a people go quiet before something holy. Later, when the moon had crossed to the far ridge and the ring had emptied, and the frost had wholly melted from the sand, Garrick came to us. He was not the swaggering man who had bid her crawl off my ground. He stood with his eyes down, turning his hands over as though he did not know how to hold them, and when he spoke his voice had lost all its edges. "My Luna," he said, and the title cost him, and he paid it anyway. "I called you empty. I taught the young ones to laugh. There is no undoing what I said on this sand tonight, and I will not insult you by pretending otherwise." He drew a breath. "I only wanted you to know that I know it. I will carry it." I felt Ussold's hand tighten in mine, and I waited because this too was hers to answer. She looked at Garrick a long while. "You will carry it," she agreed gently, "and you will teach the young ones something better with the same voice you taught them to laugh. That is how you undo it. Not tonight, but you will begin tonight." Garrick bowed his head, and this time it was not fear that bent him. He went, and he walked lighter for the weight she had handed him to carry. I stood beside my Luna in the emptied ring where they had jeered at her, where the ground had trembled and the pack had bowed, and I watched the last of her frostlight fade into ordinary moonlight on ordinary sand. She was shivering. I drew her under my arm, and she let me, and she leaned her head against my shoulder as if she had been made to fit there. "They will follow you," I told her, "not because I command it, because they saw you rise." "Let them follow slowly," she murmured. "I have only just stopped being empty. I would like to learn how it feels to be full before I lead." I laughed, quiet, wondering, the first true laugh I had loosed in 11 years. And I held the silver Luna of the old moonblood close under the great white moon, and I knew the long, cold reign of my solitude was ended.